Hi! So this video is going to be about whether I think people treat people in wheelchairs differently than people who aren't in wheelchairs. So I'm an ambulatory wheelchair user. This means that although I do fall under the bracket of being disabled and needing a wheelchair, I can walk in some circumstances. I've got a condition called FND. This means that my brain and nervous system don't work in coherence with each other. It can cause numerous symptoms, but the one that causes me to need a wheelchair sometimes is paralysis. Basically, you never know from one day to the next whether my legs are going to be working completely normally or whether they're going to be partially paralysed, whether I won't be able to move below my waist at all. It's quite a scary thing to live with because of the uncertainty. But recently my legs have been really good. I've been walking almost normally for the first time in maybe 6 months. So I'm really happy with that. But I just wanted to talk about whether, when I was in a wheelchair full time, do I think people treated me differently then? So in my opinion, they did. Now this will be different for everyone who uses a wheelchair, but because I've got experience of not being in a wheelchair and being in a wheelchair, I can see the differences better than someone who's full time in a wheelchair, because they don't know any different. Some things I experienced from being in a wheelchair was people talking about me while I was there. People would ask my parents how I was. They'd say, how's Neve today? I'm literally sitting there, you can ask me. It just annoys me when people assume that I can't speak for myself. And then the people that do speak to me talk to me like a baby. Now this isn't everybody. There's some really lovely people out there. But some people would literally look down on you and be like, are you okay, sweetie? Like, I'm 16 years old. I understand that you might think that because I'm in a wheelchair that I'm also mentally disabled, but I can understand you, and it does annoy me when people treat me as though I'm 4 years old. Another thing was people seemed to think that they could ask questions about my personal life, like strangers. I'd see a few strangers in public and I'd smile at them, and they then think that that's an invitation to ask me why I'm in a wheelchair. I'm happy talking about it on the internet because my page is an awareness account. So the whole point of my page is to talk about why I'm in a wheelchair. But a lot of people don't want to talk about that sort of thing, and they don't feel comfortable to tell people why they're in a wheelchair. I don't come up to able-bodied people and ask them about their health. People also assume that everybody in a wheelchair is paralysed. So for me, sometimes that was the case. However, sometimes I would be using a wheelchair because part of my FND means that I've got chronic fatigue, which means I can get tired really easily. Another symptom is muscle weakness and muscle pain. So there's so many reasons why someone might need to use a wheelchair. They'd be like, oh darling, were you in a car accident? Are you paralysed? That's just not an acceptable thing to say to someone. Now everyone's views on this are different, so again, I'm only speaking for myself. But personally, I don't like it. Another thing that really upsets me is people moving wheelchair users. There's a few cases where people have been in their wheelchair, say in a supermarket, and they're in front of something that someone else wants to pick up. So someone will just push them out of the way. That is literally the equivalent to me walking up to an able-bodied person, picking them up and moving them. You just don't do it. If you want us to move because we're in the way, just ask. It can be so scary if someone just starts pushing your wheelchair. Because our movement, whilst we're in a wheelchair, unless you've got self-propelling wheelchairs where you can push the wheels yourself, our movement is the responsibility of someone else. So my overall answer to this is yes, people are treated differently when they're in a wheelchair. Again, I don't have to use mine much anymore, and everybody's situation is different. But for me, having experiences from both being in a wheelchair and being able to walk, that's my opinion. So yeah, rant over. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, or if you have any other questions on, well, anything really, please comment it if the comments are on. If the comments aren't on, then you could comment it on my TikTok or Instagram. Thank you for watching.